Welcome everybody to tonight's Norfolk Advisory Committee meeting. I am Arthur Franzak, the chair of the board of the advisory committee, I should say, not board. And I will first do a quick roll call to confirm that the members are here and we have a quorum. I shall go alphabetically. So please, when I call your name, respond in the affirmative so we can verify that you're here and you can hear us. Kristen Balish.
I am here.
Brian Bichkowski.
Present.
I am present, Arthur Franzak. Michael Huff.
Present.
Jonathan Hurwitz.
Present.
Jackie Katz. I saw Jackie's email. Oh, are we still waiting for Jackie? Okay. Well. Susan Klein.
Here.
David Lutz.
Here.
Kiara Moore.
Here.
Excellent. So all but one of us are here this evening, and we definitely have a quorum. Speakers we have on the agenda tonight include Blythe Robinson, our town administrator, who is with us. Thank you, Blythe. And also today we have Kevin Calcutt joining from the select board. Thank you, Kevin. And also we have Susan Jacobson here. Hey, Susan. Nice to see you. Okay.
And Todd has joined us.
Thank you, Todd. Finance director, town finance. Yes, thank you, Todd. Okay. Now I'd also love to introduce, for those who haven't already met her, our new advisory committee administrative assistant, Amy Sheehan. So thank you so much, Amy, for offering to help us out. Amy will be moving to the Norfolk area very soon, and she was eager to help out with the community and also learn what goes on in Norfolk. I think this is a great spot to get visibility into all kinds of stuff. So thank you so much, Amy. We're so glad to have you.
Welcome.
Now for some preamble. As folks know, given the current COVID-19 related state of emergency, Governor Baker issued an executive order that encourages us to meet remotely in order to mitigate the transmission of the virus. So public gatherings are suspended. And while we are not meeting physically, we are meeting virtually in Zoom. And I need to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. Also, please be aware that folks will be able to see you, not just hear your voice, because this is a video meeting. Tonight's agenda includes, we are going to review the draft warrant. We're then going to talk about our schedule upcoming, who we're going to have present at which meeting, what makes sense. Third on the agenda, we want to talk about the capital improvement plan, which Blythe helpfully shared beforehand. We will close by talking about minutes. And with that, we will go ahead and start a discussion of the warrant, which I believe, Blythe, you are walking us through.
Yep.
Can you share your screen or should I, Blythe?
I'm going to let you do that.
All righty. Let me work my advisory chair magic. Boom. Okay. November 17th, special town meeting warrant. Take it away, Blythe.
Yes. So right now we have 8 articles, and I would call this a fairly light warrant with generally housekeeping, capital type of issues. I wouldn't really even call them issues. I think it's fairly straightforward. We spoke by email with Jay this afternoon, and yesterday he seems to be leaning. We haven't picked the actual location yet. I put the I left Freeman Kenny in just because that's what we've done last year and highlighted it to remind us all to finalize that before the select board signs the warrant on the 20th. I think he's got his eye on either Freeman Kennedy, where we had it last year, or at the middle school in the cafeteria. So stay tuned for that. But just to go quickly through the articles, we do have, you're going to be familiar with most of them. Number 1 is a typical transfer article. And we do have a list that we're working on. We haven't gotten free cash approval yet this fall, but we're not planning to, our strategy is not to spend any free cash for transfers. Todd's joining us and he's intimately familiar with the numbers, but at a broad scale, we're going to be receiving back about $175,000 from the state in Chapter 70 and unrestricted government aid above what we budgeted. The state is level funding those two accounts and we had budgeted less. So that gives us some latitude to make some transfers, and also we need to spend the MEC appropriation of $95,000 that was budgeted. That grant came through from the state as well. So we plan to stay within the appropriation, and just the things that we're keeping an eye on are town council expenses, stormwater, the third year of the stormwater MS4 work we're obligated to do, a contribution to OPEB. We decided to put that in transfers rather than a separate article this year, and a couple other things. So working on that. Number two, unpaid bills, and we don't have any. We don't expect to have any, but as you all know, this is on there just in case something comes up that we didn't expect. We can take care of it.
If we could pause for a second, Blythe. I think we have a question. Yes.
Great.
Yes, Susan.
Yes, I thought we had discussed that the Chapter 70 money was going to be returned to the schools.
So what we're doing is we, and Todd can fill us in on exactly what that number is, but what we had promised everybody was that we would give back whatever we had to cut, once we saw what we got back, and so in the same proportional share. So we went through that math, and that number is just a shade under 85,000. But Todd, can you remind everybody how much more in Chapter 70 we're getting than what we had budgeted?
Yeah, so for the state, they, again, for both Chapter 70 and for the unrestricted government aid, they're level funding from last year. So the budget for last year of FY 2020 for Chapter 70 money was $3,461,385. For the state aid, unrestricted was $1,018,329. We budgeted $3,410,000, which is about a shortfall of $50,000 for the Chapter 70 monies, and we decreased it by about 15%, or $889,820. And the difference between those two items is a total of $179,533. So the Chapter 70 monies accounts for about $50,000 of that portion, and the $129,000 is the unrestricted government aid that typically goes throughout the town and goes towards the budget. The $179,000, if I break that out based on our proportionate share between King Philip, Town of Norfolk, and Norfolk schools, the Norfolk school portion, based on the percentage, would be $84,871.42.
So short answer, Susan, we're returning back to the schools more than just the Chapter 70 money.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
When you were saying that you were using the money for other things, I just wanted to make sure that the schools were getting their proportion due.
And that's exactly what we're going to do in Article 3, is call that out separately, so it's clear that it's going directly to the school.
Okay, thank you.
So, so that really answers where I was going to go with number 3. I think we've taken care of that. It's strictly to relocate that money back to schools, and that's already been communicated to Ingrid. She's aware of that.
Just for clarification, I'm sorry, Blake. For clarification, so that goes back to, that brings them to their budget. I remember that there were 2 budgets, and I don't have it in front of me. I guess let me do I'll look at the numbers. I'll probably satisfy my own question, or I'll ask next time.
No problem. Yep. Sounds good.
Todd had something to share on that.
So Michael, what I think you're going to try and figure out is how much do we reduce the school budget by? That was $284,822 originally. and we're returning 84,871 back, which is the proportionate share of the state aid that we're getting back that we know of right now.
And Todd, reduced from which budget? Because we had two budgets.
Yep. The original budget minus the 983, which is the $983,000 that we had to settle up, which include the 380,000 from the MEC assessment, brought down the overall differential of 602, and that got proportioned out between town of Norfolk, the town of Norfolk schools, and KP budget.
I think Mr. Lutz had a question, Todd, very quickly here.
It might be helpful, Todd, to present it to us, and you might not have it in front of you, in the 2.3, 1.1, and point whatever it was scenarios, rather than
the approved budget at town meeting
was
what?
Was what? That's what I got. If you remember correctly, I think Michael's question is when we were originally presented a budget in the early part of last spring's deliberations, it was a 2.3 or 2.1.
And then we had to reduce that amount down to 983.
Well, what was that percentage? Because it was, you presented scenarios.
David, it went down to 0.13.
Yeah, right, at the end, right.
Yeah, so it went down like 2.2% because it basically
there was one in the middle though. I think there was a brief stopover somewhere.
That was the one I tried to get past. Remember, using the MEC money?
Yep.
Taking out the MEC. I tried to get that one passed. It didn't work. So we ended up approving the I think it was 0.13, 0.17, 0.7,
right.
Whatever. Basically the zero budget, which means.
No, I understand. I understand that. I guess what I think, in sort of, I don't want to put words in Michael's mouth, but to piggyback on his request is that, is this restoring us to one of the other scenarios, or is it simply addition of money to a certain perspective? And could we get a percentage on what that means over last year's school budget and over last year's town budget?
I don't have it right now.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm saying that.
Again, the budget was reduced for the school portion.
Yep.
284.
Yep.
We're reinstituting 84,000. So the school still has a shortfall from their
200,000.
200,000.
But I think it's also important to point out that we promised to restore what we knew we would get, what money we knew we'd get it back, and we were sure we're never going to get. We're pretty sure that we will not see prison mitigation.
I'm not arguing that. I'm simply saying that I think where Michael was coming from. Michael, step in and stop me from making a fool of myself.
No,
I think where Michael was coming from when they presented to them, we were presented with these things without going into detail on the budgets as a percentage increase. And then they kept, the percentage increase kept turning into a smaller percentage. And I think when he said a different budget, that's what he was talking about. Now I understand these things they were all evolving like on a daily and weekly basis through the spring. But when we were presented with kind of a scenario budget, I guess I'm just trying to get a sense of where we're going to end up above what we appropriated as a percentage, because we're going to get asked that question.
David, do you mind if I try to help with this a little bit?
I'd rather, Susan, I'd rather move on, and if Todd can give me some of the numbers that he mentioned, I didn't want to belabor the point. I was just trying to get a.
Yeah, originally, the budget that was passed with the MEC assessment change was 0.13.
Yep.
0.36 was the original budget that was pretty much shown to everybody. That included the MEC assessment because we had to have the $94,000 available. So adding this back in brings us up to about 0.5 or 0.6% overall budget.
So are there any other
over
figures?
2019.
Yep.
So David, are there other figures you'd like Todd to?
No,
I'm. Mike, how about you? Are you good?
I think I'm good. I have to see the numbers, just the way my brain works. So
Yeah.
I'll do my homework. I'll come better prepared next time.
Yeah, I mean, just as my sense of it, which could be wrong, but yeah, Todd and Blythe, we understand what happened at the budget.
Yep.
Prior to that, that's our baseline. The earlier thing, which I know that didn't happen, is still alive and fresh in all of our memories. So we're very interested in that as a reference point going forward. The original, right.
Thank you.
And certainly we had hoped that we would know more about other revenue sources like prison mitigation, because frankly, if that had come in too, then this number would be higher.
Right.
And because we always promised to restore what to them, what, you know, what came back their share. So that's the goal.
And we appreciate you guys, you know, obviously making good on that. I'm so grateful that we can restore it back to that reduced level. However, I believe there will be perpetual questions from this committee about not how do we restore it to what was agreed to, but how do we restore it before, you know, the freight train hit, and so yeah, that's the baseline that I think people are very interested in.
Yep, I understand.
Okay, so we're now at Article 4.
Actually,
Article 4.
Oh, sorry, Brian. Yes, go. Sorry. Yes, Brian. Go ahead.
Not to completely derail it. There's something stuck in my head that I'm trying to figure out, and I might be remembering it wrong. But I thought when we took that next cut, it was only coming out of the Norfolk schools and the town budget, and KP was held because that was the tri-party agreement across the towns. So do I have that out of sequence? And we did take out of KP schools too? Okay, we did.
We did, because, and that was agreed to by all 3 towns.
Okay.
And we have a phone call with KP tomorrow. We've been having with them about every month, just where they stand. They are in fairly good shape right now because they did receive their Chapter 70 allocation as we did, which was what their biggest concern was. They had some staff changes and a few things, other things going on. So they are not looking for any additional funds for their budget. Where we're focused is on their only way to obtain CARES funds is through the communities. And so what we've been meeting about is their costs for that we can absorb as part of ours.
Okay. We should probably be able to answer, are the other communities proportionally doing the same for care support or not?
Yeah, and that's the phone call tomorrow is with all 3 town administrators and KP to talk about what are they spending on PPE and custodial help and teachers subbing for other teachers and all that stuff, and how much, you know, and it's all been such a moving target about when do they start fully in person or hybrid or remote, and, you know.
Okay.
You need to have more questions than answers on some things.
Yes, a follow-up question. Kristen, I believe you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have more of a process question since I'm still relatively new.
You can't keep saying that.
Someday I'll feel like, maybe, yeah, I know, I just rejoined right for another 3 years. So my question is, if we have to restore to all these different budgets, why is the article written specifically about the school when we're proportionately putting it back to different places? Like, why is it only addressing one area?
You know, that's something I haven't given the warrant to town council yet, but I mean, I think on one level we thought it was important because of the concern that, you know, you guys have understandably about, you know, making sure schools are made whole, that it's its own article. But we also just need to double check the finance rules with him that this is the best appropriate way to do this. If he says it can be baked into the article and transfer in Article 2, in Article 1, I suppose we could do it that way. But we just want to make sure that it's clear to everyone and it's done correctly. So that's no more complicated than that.
Right. Yeah, I think about the fact that, like, obviously some other proportion is going to the town and that's not in an article. So I was just trying to figure out why it was necessary to be written this way. I think because my related question is, what happens if this becomes a lightning rod article for some reason and it doesn't pass, right? So what would happen in that case? Will we still be doing that same allocation because that was the plan? Like, what would happen if it didn't pass?
All right, well, we'll work on that for you, Kristen.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions before we move to number 4? Arthur, does anyone else have questions?
No, I think I'm good. I just keep, when we were talking about this scenario of maybe it's not going to pass, I think of Susan, who she's going to have her "I told you so" moment, which I hope never comes to pass. So, but anyway, yes, we can go on to Article 4.
Actually, Arthur,
sorry,
I'm sorry.
yes. Jonathan,
Can I
go ahead.
one more question, and I'm sorry if I'm misremembering this, but I distinctly recall an issue or wrinkle that said if money was to appear that we couldn't put it back into the school's budget. They've already set their budget for the year, so any influx of new cash can't be spent this year.
Todd has a...
help me remember what that was about and how restoring this budget back.
Yep, there's two different things you have to be aware of. So there's the town of Norfolk portion, and there's the KP portion. The KP we can't do anything with because all three towns have to agree on any additional monies going back, and KP had to kind of set all their schedules and teachers in advance. So for KP's portion to go back to them, we can't do. So right now we have about $33,000, which is attributable to them, that we'll just retain within our amounts because it's additional monies that'll be counted towards revenues and then ultimately go to free cash. And then next year, hopefully with their budget request ask, we'll be able to meet it as they need.
One step I'd add to that is probably our school committee should certify this higher number. Is probably as a step they should take. I mean, they typically do that in the spring, so I want to check on that detail as well. That they would certify the number from the spring plus this additional amount.
But you're correct, Jonathan, that the monies for KP would not be able to get back to them very easily. So the town of Norfolk can.
I remember distinctly this was a conversation with Dr. Alardi, so it was in context to the Norfolk schools. It may have been in relation specifically to teacher positions, right? In terms of they couldn't count on hires or not hires or pink slips or not pink slips based on money that may or may not come in the future. So I remember distinctly we were discussing with Dr. Alardi that she couldn't count, and this is when we were trying to pass the second, the aforementioned Susan provided budget. But obviously I would presume, given this article, that even though that this influx of money may not affect hiring or headcount, that it can still be put back into the school for other programs or back into their general budget as they see fit. Is that for
the $84,000 would go back to the school, and the school committee would then identify where they need to make adjustments within their budget, whether that requires hiring another teacher or more janitorial or more PPE or whatever. But that's a school committee decision.
Okay,
at that point.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Jonathan, Ingrid structured it in a way that the positions that she did not fill were a technology teacher and a vice principal and a team chair. So they were all positions that, should the money come in, she would be able to fill them mid-year, whereas she could not fill a teacher position mid-year. So the hope would be that she got enough back to hire at least one of those positions back.
Got it.
Okay. I think one was library, unless that's also the technology one. That was someone that they didn't need while we were remote or hybrid, but once, and if we go back to full time, we would need that library position as well. I believe that was one of them.
I think when I talked to her, her highest priority right now is the technology add back because of everybody trying to do everything so far flung these days. They're really having difficulty keeping up with that. So I think that's their priority, but we should check.
Zoom is life. The Zoom must flow. Yes.
Yes.
Or whatever they're using. Okay. Any follow-up questions to Article 3? And feel free to use the hand raise feature. I can sometimes see folks when they wave their hand, but I can always see it on the screen. Okay, moving on to Article 4.
So I think of Article 4 and Article 5 of somewhat together. They're just two different methods by which we're going to take care of some capital items. And I know we're going to get into the CIP a little bit after this. But we spelled out in Article 4 the three things that Todd and I have strategized to fund from borrowing because of some inside the levy, some things coming off the books being paid off that allows us to add some things that and still stay within the budget that we spend on inside the levy debt. And our highest priorities are are DPW related for things that can be borrowed for a 10-year period, and that is a large DPW snowplow truck, a 30-year-old truck that needs to be replaced, a slightly younger but in even worse condition grounds vehicle, and continuing to add some money to what we spend above Chapter 90 for roads. So altogether, I think this is about $359,000, if I got that right. Todd's nodding, yep. Of actual items to be purchased, but just the vehicle would be to do short-term borrowing within the levy to pay for them.
Okay, we actually have a question from David. Go ahead, David.
Does the plow truck have utility outside of November through March?
The largest trucks don't have as much utility as we'd like them to be honest. And I should tell you that we've embarked on a lot of conversation about how many of the really big trucks that we need in this day and age. Should we have smaller ones that are more versatile and don't require a CDL driver? Should we?
Those require CDL drivers, the big ones?
They do.
Okay.
And that's been something that's challenging to hire these days. We've even started to dip our toe into, should we rent these big trucks for 5 months at whatever price rather than buying them?
Right.
So,
okay. I also saw the board down by the Rotary asking for snowplow drivers. Were we short last year, or was there?
There is a serious dearth of people, landscapers or whoever out there who want to plow for towns. We are competing hard for them. If I will say to anybody I run into, if you know anyone, we depend on probably 12 pieces of equipment to supplement what we have, and we've even taken the point of paying basically a signing bonus, if you will, of $1,000 to get people to.
Saw that. A grounds utility truck, is that a pickup truck or is that something else?
It is. If you go to page 54 of your capital budget, let me get to there. It is a F-250, I believe. There it is.
All right.
21-year-old F-250 with 108,000 miles. And I understand it will not likely pass inspection next year.
What page was that?
54. While you're looking,
I didn't get all the way through this. Oh, wow. It's much longer than I thought.
This is a big document.
It was not required to read it all tonight, I promise.
Kiara had her hand up. I was eager to, yes, Kiara, please.
Sorry.
No, sorry.
Thanks. Blythe, I was just wondering, for these older pieces of equipment that are going to be retired, will you be selling them on the surplus and then using that cash? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We did that last year. Todd, do you remember how much we brought in? I want to say 17,000, but I could be wrong. While he's looking, I will tell you that the big truck, the one which is actually on page 52, we sold its sister truck this last year and we got $600.
Not much of a trade-in value then.
Sorry, I think I should.
That's barely scrap value.
Wow.
Exactly.
I think you have to pay attention to these auctions more closely.
Total auctions for the equipment last year was $17,650.
Yeah. So we cleaned out everything in the graveyard, so to speak, and we will be on a regular rotation that once something is taken out of service, we will sell it. And but seriously, we did buy 2 trucks, I guess, in 1990. The sister one to this did get sold last year for a very de minimis amount. So you know, I can tell you that the current thought is that, you know, we will not continue to have 7 of this size. It's just the way that plowing is done differently these days. And for a lot of reasons, we'll probably over time replace them in kind with smaller ones that are more versatile. Because you're right, David, they do, you know, they occasionally use for some, you know, some type of a small construction project that we do, but they don't go out all the time.
Okay, thank you.
So those are the capital items from debt, and then we also have a list of things from cash that's in Article 5, and we're still working on that, but that's meant to be things with a shorter lifespan or lower cost, and you can expect to see things in there when we get the list finalized, like a couple of cruisers, finishing off getting the rest of the police and fire radios replaced that we've been working on, 2 pieces of critical equipment at HOD school.
Do you want to go ahead and go through the capital items now, Blythe? I mean, we had a separate agenda item for it, but if you want to do it now.
Yeah. Well, the list that we're working on, and it's not final, includes, yeah, I was going to talk about the capital budget overall. You want me to jump to that? I can do that, or we can finish talking about the warrant.
Wait, let's go ahead and finish the warrant. I just didn't know if you really, because since you've already.
Yeah, we can get back to the capital. So anyway, a list of things from cash. I will tell you that, you know, it's also our strategy that we're, there are more things I would like to put on the list in this article, but we're not right now because we want to make sure we get through winter. I want to, you know, make sure that we have some latitude when we get to the spring, if there's any other adjustments that we need to make. And those folks in the town administrator and finance world, you know, are a little more concerned about FY22 because we don't know if those Chapter 70 and unrestricted aid accounts will be level again next year. We're not sure what the state's financial picture truly is yet. And so we just don't want to spend more than we should. We'd rather be pleasantly surprised that we're in good shape, not be, you know, in a tough position. So I'm trying to be careful about all that. Article 6 is committee reports. I understand the B1 committee had wanted to make a very short overview. I'm not sure where that stands exactly, but that was the intent a couple weeks ago, and I haven't heard about any others.
I read the community page. Susan's update on that. I'm fine.
Good.
I'm making a joke. She's laughing. No one else is.
Article 7.
I'm laughing because that was a request that
I understand.
Was done before we presented to the planning board, and without getting too in depth, I did not get the sense that the planning board liked the direction. So unless they give us different feedback on their October 13th meeting, I don't think we'll have anything to present to the town because we're basically starting over if they don't like what we presented. So
yep.
There's that.
Article 7 is a CPC article to basically cover the costs for the town to be able to acquire 43 acres of land from the State Department of Correction that abuts Pond Street, so that eventually the Pond Street recreation complex can be expanded and built out. What I understand from Cindy Andrade is that, and from Ann Proto, is the amount that's in here is likely going to come down significantly, the 100,000. As you know, for an article, we tend to write things more broadly. And so that was put in there to make sure we had the ability to cover any other incidental costs for this beyond the actual purchase price, which is $400 an acre. From the state. This legislation, which has been kicking around at the state for a few years, finally passed this spring. And so this is our first opportunity to then vote on it for the actual acceptance.
And did it pass with the 43 acres or was it some unnamed?
Nope, 43 acres, and it's been signed by the governor. So it's, you know, this is the next step in the process.
Do we get a mule too, or just the 43 acres? Okay.
Went over too many young people.
Article 8, never mind. Yes.
Article 8 is a do-over from last fall. We had this almost same article last fall for 5 streets. And Tailwind Circle is the only one that made it over the finish line, I think, of those. So Silver Fox Road is the only one we're coming forward with now. Once you pass something like this, a town meeting of 120 days to record the deed and convey, and after town meeting, there was a question about a real estate transaction on the street that caused us to not make the 120 days. So literally it's a do-over to vote it again so we can now finish it and accept it. So paperwork. If you will. And we had wanted to do Meeting House Road and Liberty Lane, but there's some other issues with those, and so we'll bring those back another time.
All
and
right.
So lastly, I have had a conversation with a resident who's gathering signatures for a citizen petition. I don't know if anyone's caught that on Facebook.
Yep.
I don't know what's going to happen. I've helped her with the process, helped her understand that there may be some pitfalls to her initial approach that might not pass muster with the state. You know, it passed muster with the town. And though I know she's still gathering signatures, so this one may come in right near the end when we sign the warrant.
And people have the right to submit right up until the day that the selectmen sign the warrant? That was a question. I think I asked this in the spring too, so.
Well, I think if this happens, you know, starts happening on a regular basis, the remedy, if you will, to that is for us to put a bylaw in place that says they have to be turned in by a certain point.
I might write that and submit it as a citizen petition.
So just remember, 100 signatures for a special, 10 for an annual.
Wow, big difference.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've said to her, look, you know, we've already got in the file drawer an updated animal regulations bylaw anyway, because of the issues that we've had with dogs, not just the dog hearing this summer, but some dog questions in the spring. But the select board didn't want to rush it through and decided we would wait till spring. So I told her, look, you know, we weren't planning to change the section you're interested in until, you know, at all. And so if you want to not move forward this fall and ask the board if they like your change, we can do that and they can say yes or no. If they say no, you can bring it back in the spring with 10 signatures. So that's what I know.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so that concludes our warrant such as it exists tonight. I would like to make sure we've had a chance to ask and answer any questions folks had. I know we kind of jumped in with the various articles. Any other hands to be raised here before we talk about scheduling? I see none. I don't see anyone from the public with us, although if again, anyone can ask a question. Nope, alrighty. So I would now like to go and consider the schedule. So we have the 14th, the 21st, and 28th. We have 3 more meetings at which I want to make sure that if we're going to have people come speak to us, that we have speakers slotted to arrive and have those discussions with us on the appropriate days. I'm going to go back to the first article here in terms of the budget. When will you be presenting the formal budget itself to us, Blythe? I'm sorry, the transfers.
So, I mean, I only spoke with the select board about those in general last night as well. I'm going to speak with them again on the 20th. I could do that on the 21st if that works for you.
Or should we push it to the 28th just to make sure that, you know?
Whichever is more convenient, Arthur.
Well, let's slate that for the 21st. Amy, if you can help me kind of mark this down. So on the 21st, we want to talk about Article 1, and Blythe and Todd, I believe, will be the speakers, correct? Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And I think 2 counts in that same category. unpaid bills, which I don't think, well, I don't know if we'll have any, but that's usually not major business to discuss. Do you see well, 3 is, should we go ahead and talk about 3 at the same time, Blythe?
Sure, I don't know if you want to invite Ingrid to talk about it or, but I mean, that's up to you.
Okay, well, do folks have a sense, advisory committee members, would it be helpful to have Ingrid here to discuss the particulars of the transaction that we're proposing for this special town meeting? Yes, no?
I mean, I personally don't think it's necessary. I think she gave us a very in-depth situation and how she was going to handle it should the money come in. But if people need that, I mean, there's certainly no issue with having it. This is such a light warrant. I'm not sure we need really speakers on anything, but that's just me.
No, I agree with you about about Ingrid. From my perspective, this is all sort of pre-locked and loaded. I think there might be more discussion if we were not able to execute on what we had hoped, but things are looking good. So unless anyone has need to the oh, David, yes, go ahead.
I guess a general question would be, there was a reference earlier to having the school committee approve the spending of the funds that are returned. That can't happen. I mean, if they have a discussion about it, it would be worth having some synopsis of that discussion before town, meaning if they have a discussion about it before town meeting, it would be worth having a synopsis of that from somebody that could answer questions. If they don't have that and they can't have it, then I'm kind of with Susan. But
my understanding would be they can't certify the funds and decide.
Oh, yeah, I understand that part. But
the town approves it at the November meeting.
But they know something's coming, or they think something's coming. So.
Well, we've already. I mean, she's asked us for the number, and we gave it to her 10 days ago, at least, maybe 2 weeks ago.
I would just suggest if we're going to do that for the school, we would want to do that for the town too. At least be able to answer the basic question of what's the plan for this? What will it support above the approved budget breakout?
Well, I said Todd and I can talk in depth about Article 1, and I can certainly to save Ingrid a meeting, because I know she's working so hard. I'd be happy to touch base with her and report back whatever works.
Yeah, my comment is less about our ability to answer the question, more about we should to have a equal standard that we hold for across the board for the school and the town. So I think actually you reporting your conversations with her is no difference than you reporting your conversation with DPW.
DPW doesn't work for her. I mean, the town schools don't work for her.
Yes. So I guess technically there is a difference in actual supervision, but I think from a reporting standpoint, it's.
Oh, I'm just offering to help. I totally, not trying to.
Well, so the way I guess I would frame this is, Blythe, if Ingrid really would like to be heard, we are happy to have her. However, I'm not sure her presence will really help us on the voting that we have to do. And
right.
to the earlier point about, do we need to have guests here? To me, we need to vote. So even if we're just scheduling a meeting to vote, if we don't need any discussion or presentations or information, that's fine. But I want right now to figure out how do we get to a vote on these different days such that people have the information that they need. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds like Articles 1, 2, and 3, that Blythe is well able to gather the information necessary and present specifics such that we could take action on the 21st. That sound good there, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's Articles 1, 2, and 3. 4.
Let me raise my hand appropriately.
Waiting for it. There, I see it. David, you had a question.
No, I didn't actually. I will volunteer to speak with the DPW director. I want to ask him some questions about the road and pavement management plan and how much what this increased funding will do for his projects, all of which now will be in the spring. And I can bring it back.
It will not nearly be enough, but
I know, I understand that. I just, we'll get asked that question. Is my road going to be paved? So I want to get a sense of what he's theoretically thinking he's going to get done in the spring at this point. So I can bring that back to the next meeting. I don't know if we need him unless Brian feels strongly or something. I've given his previous comment. I'm not picking on you, Brian. I'm just, but I can bring that back to the next meeting. I'll talk to him this week. I am the DPW liaison, I guess. So.
Sure, that's great. I mean, appreciate you getting input from that, and then Blythe can, and again, right. Todd can share all the specifics on Article 4 and 5, although we're about to talk about it. Is that something we can vote on tonight after your presentation, Blythe, or are there still blanks that need filling in?
We want a little more time just to make sure of the things we have on the list. The selectmen, haven't got all the details yet either, so I just want to be, cognizant of that.
Okay, so let's go over the capital plans in a specific way on the 14th, which is next Wednesday, and see if we can't take care of Articles 4 and 5 together on the same night. Make sense?
Yep.
Article 6, yeah, this doesn't really, this isn't really ours to approve. We don't make a recommendation on it. Article 7, CPC. Does this warrant separate consideration, or is this just the routine that we would want to maybe make part of our budget discussion?
You might want to include Cindy or Ann for that. I haven't been, since I haven't been here as long as they, I don't have all the history on this. I just know that we're ready to move forward, and there's a significant capital project someday in the future with the land.
So why don't we have them go first next Wednesday if they can make it? Could you, Amy, ask either Cindy or Ann if they could come to next Wednesday? This will be the 14th meeting. We can put them first on the agenda because I think this is not going to take that long. We can take care of that and then get into the meat and potatoes of Articles 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I will.
Thank you. And Article 8. Is there more information? I think that you were just talking about this, Blythe. So when do you think it makes sense to talk about this?
I think we can take care of it next week. I mean, I can forward you the letter from the town planner, but like I said, it's a simple. We just didn't get it done in a required number of days last year.
Sure. So I have down next Wednesday, the 14th, we're going to talk about Articles 7, 8, 4, and 5. And then the subsequent meeting on the 21st, we're doing 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
And we might not even need to have our meeting on the 28th. We can close our discussion on the 21st with a assignment of everybody gets one article to write up. Yeah, it's going to be slim pickings this time. Okay, that'll be good if we can finish things on the 21st. It will give Amy a little more time and myself to help work out the kinks for the warrant printing, and that'll be her first time for that. Yes.
And maybe she does, but with Amy being new, does she know who you're talking about when you say call Ann and Cindy?
I'm writing this down so that Blythe can coordinate afterwards with her.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just, she probably doesn't know that, who they are and how to get in touch with them yet.
Yep. All right. So is it worth, do you want to, I think we've covered all the warrant article items. Do you want to talk at all about the capital improvement, or is this just maybe homework for us to dive in deeper at the next
I just
meeting?
want to give you a very quick overview.
Okay.
I did not at all mean for anyone to spend, hours looking through this right away. But I just wanted to give you a summation. So last year, we put together what became a spreadsheet of a list of projects and estimates on cost and years. And I think that was a great start. We got our arms around and put on paper information about when we should be replacing vehicles in the next 5 years, and repairs to buildings and projects, capital projects with buildings we thought were important. And it was a great first step, but for me, it just wasn't enough information for the town to start to think about how we're going to take care of all these things in the coming years. So this year, the goal was to build this out into a lot more detail. And that's why it's so long, because there's 91 different projects or items in here, and there's a page for each one, which gives you a snapshot, like we just talked about with a truck, of what each item is, when it's scheduled, a little bit about it. Not everything you're going to want to know, but something.
Wow, this is very detailed. Yeah.
And the beginning of the document that you're scrolling through right now really tries to give the reader an overview of all the assets of the town. We've listed all the buildings, we've listed all the vehicles. Comes right from our green communities on the page you're on right now. That comes right from our green communities list.
Interesting.
Very up to date. And the picture we're trying to paint is the town has, millions of dollars of buildings and equipment and technology and things that are considered capital in nature, and they all have a lifespan of some kind. And it's important to put all that down so that people can start to have a conversation about what are our priorities, what are the things that are most important to us. Is it roads? Is it great recreation facilities? Is it reliable, snowplow trucks? What can we afford to spend? What do we want to spend? And in taking care of all those things and being prepared for things like more kids in school and having to expand buildings, I think it's important to try to figure out a roadmap and a priority so that we can get to them all. And, so this plan last year when we put it on paper first was $50 million. This year it's 58. And there's really 3 reasons for that. One is that with the acquisition of the land on Pond Street, the Recreation Commission believes that to do what they think is important will cost $10 million. And last year they had projected it to be 6. Mm-hmm. We've also identified that we need to replace transite water pipe that's in the water system. And that's going to be paid for by the water users, but it's a $3.5 million project, over a number of years. And then the last major add was really a change of philosophy. We have a 24-year-old, our ladder truck is 24 years old. It's getting on. It's about 4 years beyond when you'd ideally replace them. And Chief Bushnell had recommended that we would refurbish it for about $350,000. The new chief now, and his concern is, I don't think that's a good investment of $350,000 in a truck that's that old. I think it should be replaced with one that's much more versatile for our town, but new. Those cost $1.3 million. So there's $1 million swing almost there. So the reason we spent so much time on this was to put this all out there, and hopefully we can structure some conversations between, with the select board, maybe together, about what are our priorities and how might we start to attack it. And it doesn't have to be in big chunks. When I was in Upton, we started similarly with roads with $100,000 extra from free cash, but we're determined that every year we're going to grow that number. Every year we're going to add 150,000, 100,000, keep adding to it. And now when you drive through that town, 8 years, 9 years later, the roads are in really good shape. We've finally been able to start to catch up. So that can work. So finding the balance of what we can afford and what we need is really important. And planning for the major projects, the expansion of Freeman Kennedy School, major project. We're waiting to hear from the MSBA at their December meeting whether they're going to invite us into their program. That would have a huge impact on this plan, because if that's really a $20 million project and that pays half, the MSBA would cover half of what's eligible. That makes this plan much more possible, what's on paper here. When can we afford to do the fire station, and when should we? Todd and I sat down with Ann Proto and said, Ann, it's really great you want to do this recreation project, but we're gonna have to decide as a town where that fits in everything and figure that out. So that's why we did it. I'm hoping that if you can look through the first, 15 or so pages, which just lays out the issues, the funding sources, the challenges that we have, then we can structure some conversations and start to figure out how we get there. Because, funding some police cars and some repairs every year from free cash isn't going to quite get there. And, may require some belt tightening in other areas. Our budget had to get leaner this year. Maybe we're not able to add back in some areas as much as we would, some departments would really like to, because we have to focus on some of these things. So I am not at all saying that we're going to do all these things in the year that are scheduled at the amount that's listed. For instance, we're going to put 100,000 towards roads, hopefully in November, match that with 400,000 from the state in Chapter 90 and still be short. That's a decision this year. Maybe we can add, we can figure out a strategy for the future. So that's, like I said, I don't want to go on and on tonight, but I hope you'll have a chance to look at it. I'd love your questions and suggestions at some point. And I hope that, like I said, spurs a conversation, and then we can figure out a strategy and then work on that. So.
Yeah, thank you for all the work on this. This has a lot of, I think, really good information. So
it's not all just a lot of work from Todd, and it's a lot of work from the departments to pull all the details together. So it's all of them.
Thank you, Todd. And no good deed goes unpunished. We have questions, many, many questions. Look at all these hands. So Brian, please go ahead and go first.
Yeah, this is great. This is something that I think we really need to do to have a multi-year plan put in and prioritization of how we go. So I'm a huge champion of all this. I guess my question is on the scope of the way it was looked at. Did it look at, are there possible ways to sequence the activities where they have a cost effectiveness with them? I think at one of our meetings we talked about if we do road paving at the same time we do some of the utility upgrade requests by local utilities, where we have to do the patching anyway, we could save money by that kind of sequence. Did this look at those interdependencies and sequencing effects as well?
To some extent it did, but not on every single one. I mean, one of the things that I find frustrating is that we don't have, we have a very paper-oriented system to track our expenses for what we spend on trucks to keep them on the road. And so I can't sit here and tell you how much we spent on truck 23 in a year, and so that we can have a good conversation about whether it's a good time to replace it or not. I know, Public Works does think through, gee, if we're going to do a road, what's coming. There is some of that, but maybe not as much as there could be.
Okay, very good. David, yes, your question.
So I actually got further than the first 15, or I didn't get to the individual projects pages. I didn't realize how big this was until tonight. But I got
get you printed copies if anyone
Oh,
wants.
no, this is fine. Well, I shouldn't, it's fine for me. It does look a little bit like, especially in the out years, that it was just kind of throw everything up against the wall. How much evaluation went into the projects at this point? The first year maybe a lot, but has there been any out year evaluation of proposals?
Out years is somewhat based on, if it's vehicles, it's age of vehicles and
Right.
appropriate timing. At this point, an estimate of what something would cost in that year.
But like facility stuff,
honestly,
where it talks about painting, a lot of the facilities talk about painting projects, interior and exterior, some insulation projects, things like that. Were they evaluated, or I mean, I appreciate that he doesn't.
Some of it is schedule based. Some
Yep.
of it is need based. Some of them are projects, like the work to bring natural gas to town hall and put in new boilers and all. Some of it's dependent on grants for, we got into the Green Community Program, and some of these things will be able to pay for that. We have to win some of those grants, and we might not do something if we can't, land the funds in another way to pay for it. So it's probably a little more on the aspirational, this is a best practice than it is on reality. Exactly. I had a frank conversation with the fire chief about, a brand new Quint fire truck at 1.3 million. I said, Chief, that's going to be really pretty darn difficult to pull off next year. We have to think about, is a used truck, a lightly used truck, a better play for us? How do we do that? His philosophy also is that we could have less trucks that are more versatile than the ones we have today. He's kind of unhappy because he had made an application from the federal AFG program to replace the tanker truck and engine 2 with one new truck, and hope to get $500,000 to cover that, and the other 300 we have to come up with. I thought that was a great strategy. Let's not have as many vehicles and have ones that work better for us. So those are the things that we're thinking about.
Okay, that's much appreciated. Thank you. Susan, go ahead. Your question.
Not to beat a dead horse, but if we would revisit the OPEB money or the retirement funding that we're doing for healthcare, meaning dropping it from the 65% down to the 50%. I know you're laughing, but this is the hill I'm going to die on. I'm going to keep
die with you there.
That's $122,000 a year that we could be putting into this capital expenditure fund. I get it. Nobody likes to cut things, but if we're cutting it not excessively, we're just cutting it back to the recommended state level. I mean, I hate to tell you this, but I'm probably going to bring this up every single time you're asking for money. I'm going to say, well, I got a few places you could get it from. So that's just me. So I'd like for, I would assume it's the select board that's going to do that. I'd like to see the select board revisit that at least and have the discussion.
Yep.
Either at the same time or prior to us asking the town to pay more money. You see what I'm saying? Like in good conscience, I have to be able to say we've turned over every stone looking for money, and this is our only option left. I want to be able to tell
decisions.
Yes.
And I couldn't agree more.
So, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Susan. Any other questions or follow-ups people have? Okay, well, thank you for the preview, Blythe, and again, all the work, Blythe and Todd. We will review that material for a more in-depth discussion at our next meeting. I believe we have the schedule set for the next 2 weeks, and again, if that holds, we will not need the meeting on the 28th. One schedule sort of wrinkle that I wanted to mention is I've talked with our wonderful clerk, Mr. Lutz here, about him backing me up in case of some sort of an emergency. What could be an emergency, you might ask? Well, there are power outages. I don't want to be the only person able to host a meeting, but I've also shared the fact that my wife and I are expecting our first child in 2 weeks. Anyone who's a parent probably knows that, well, you can plan, you can sort of target these things, but babies come when babies come. So I'm told the sort of the green zone where this might happen kind of starts next week and goes into early November. So hopefully, I'll be able to attend all these meetings, and then we'll have our child, and maybe I'll, of course, then we have almost a whole month before town meeting, so perhaps this will work out. But in case I suddenly am not available, I really appreciate Dave sitting in and facilitating the meeting. Please be kind to David. If you break him, you will not get another one.
And all I can say is that I will duly screw up all of the progress Arthur made in understanding and how to run a Zoom meeting in my first 2 or 3 attempts at this.
Well, we'll also chat offline, Dave, with Amy,
absolutely.
As well as Blythe. There are certain wrinkles to this, like the Zoom account is actually attached to my email, so we'll have to figure out how to swing that. But I'll follow up with both Amy as well as you, Blythe, about just some planning to have a backup plan.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
I haven't been with you too long yet. At what point in the year, I know every board, when they meet for like the first time after July, I guess others vote on their who's chair, who's vice chair, all that. When do you guys do that, or did you do that and I missed it?
We typically do it at the start, although we just say, hey, from who would like to be clerk, that type of thing. We haven't had a vice chair.
Well, we did it. I think we did it in the early of this year because Steve resigned.
He left.
And we would have done it. I don't know. I've only been through this 2 or 3 times. I can't remember which. There are reappointments that happened supposedly at the beginning of the fiscal year, right? Wouldn't that have theoretically?
I believe they would happen at the same time that we reappoint our members.
That's what I was trying to get at.
Which is July.
Right.
So we probably do need to do a reorg, Arthur.
Or the last meeting, of the year. Like for this year, town meeting was really late and things like that.
Yeah, good point.
But in general, it would be a quick meeting in July, and then we wouldn't meet again until September, usually.
That's how I've seen it done.
This has not been a normal year, so.
In many ways, and in my memory, I don't think we've had a vice chair, but happy to have one. We could talk about that more like organizationally when we have that chat. Okay, well, those.
Arthur.
Yes.
I'll just say first, congratulations.
Thank you.
I not to freak anyone out, especially you, but one standard deviation from the average is 10 days on either side. So you have about 4 days before you really need to get your stuff in gear. But yeah, so I would do it sooner rather than later.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Well, it's feeling very imminent.
What are you doing tomorrow, Arthur? May I make one comment before we go as well, Arthur?
Sure.
Amy, to introduce myself, Arthur just introduced me as the clerk, which means technically I'm the person who reviews the meeting minutes and makes corrections, et cetera, and then presents them to the full committee. So you and I will become email buddies fairly quickly. So
nice to meet you.
Someday we'll meet in person, but for now we'll be email buddies.
Yeah, Amy and I actually met over the weekend just to do some Zoom dry runs, and I mentioned the special relationship that you and she will have in terms of comparing notes and getting the minutes approved and such. So great. Yes, thank you. Our last item are minute approvals, which I don't think we have any, David, correct?
No. My question at the last meeting was answered by Sue, is that I was looking at that Zoom meeting host page that we go to, and they don't have any of our minutes. So I thought that we had wasted our time, but in fact, they're on, the ones we've approved are on the town website. There's a handful of ones from last spring that Sue said she's getting to me, and they will be reviewed and hopefully brought to either next meeting or the meeting after, and then we'll start picking up with Amy's minutes as well. So.
Oh, good, great. I know Blythe and I had just chatted, and we were eager to stay on it. I'm glad that you are. I know we fell behind for a bit, so thanks for doing that.
Yep.
That covers the minutes. So our agenda is concluded. Any other final questions people have or comments? I will take a motion to conclude, to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so that's Brian seconded, and Dave made the motion. Okay, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. It is unanimous. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you next Wednesday night.